that was pretty good. You know, you haven't really lived until you've had the privilege of working with about 300 or 400 wonderful women. and that's the privilege that I have, of course. And the men, they do okay too, but it's the gals who really make this thing happen. And as you know, we started several years ago, and Karen and a couple of the others, and they saw some of the women coming back to Camp Pendleton and elsewhere, and they saw the feelings with the families and the families wanting to come and be with their wounded sons and daughters and the like, and husbands and wives, and they could see that it was very, very difficult, and that really there wasn't much of a way that the government could fund or pay for many of these kinds of expenses and the like. And so it really started out as sort of a niche fund, if you will. Doing those little things, if you will, that hopefully make a difference. And then it grew. And initially we were able to give out some grants of a couple $100, remember, Karen, and stuff like that. And then we really ran out of money. And then we got together and said, well, you know, let's try to do something about this. This is a pretty good idea. Let's have a board and the like. And I remember really the individual who helped us in the very beginning was Ross Perot. I wrote him a letter, and Ross sent me a check for $100,000, and that kind of got us going again, and got us out of the woods and got us off and running. And we've been going at high speed ever since. We owe an awful lot, of course, to our volunteers. I can never keep track of the numbers. Sometimes it's 190, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. Not just in this country, but in Europe and elsewhere. And these volunteers of ours, these gals just do a wonderful job. And they're on top of everything. And they dig out things, they find out things. And they take steps to get help when help is really needed in a desperate way. And so I'm very, very proud to be a part of that, and to be able to acknowledge really the wonderful job that our volunteers do. About 58 or 59% of our funds, if you will, goes to the families, and that's as it should be. The injured Marines and the sailors and the other servicemen and women who support us and that we help, and it goes to their families to try to make things a little bit easier in this terribly difficult and trying time for them. Another large percentage goes to transportation of all kinds. Many of our amputees and the like need help, and the bands and the special equipment and all that kind of thing. After the Veterans Affairs pays their portion, there's much left over. And so we pick up the difference there and take care of that. We also provide other kinds of specialized support. The big thing is we really don't have we don't pay anybody to ask for contributions. It's all grassroots. It's all done by people like you and legions of others out there around the country who tell the Semper Fi story. We simply will not put up with having this commercialized at all. We don't want that. Many of you donate to many different activities, and I'm sure that all of you from time to time get a little bit fed up with the mail. I mean, it just comes on and on and on, and it's really practically junk mail. So we don't do any of that. It's word of mouth. We tell the story, we tell it like it is, and that's the way we get the support. We've had wonderful support, and it's growing every year. Tonight, as you and I spend some time together, we've given out $46 million, all in grants, no loans. The other thing that I would say about the fund is that it's very quick and it's very agile. There's not a fund in the world that's more agile than the Semper Fi Fund, and we Marines wouldn't have it any other way. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We had one of our volunteers down in Florida a few years ago, found out that an Army sergeant who was very, very badly wounded in Iraq could not pay his mortgage, could not get a job. He'd been a Marine, and a lot of Marines, as you know, win the National Guard or something like that. They really want to have something to do, and they want to really make sure that the Army is at least partially trained, so they can But at any rate, he was down there, and one of our volunteers found out on a Wednesday morning that they were going to foreclose on his house. And Saturday morning, as the individual mortgage guy drove up to the house with the poster to close the house and take it away from this precious wounded veteran, a FedEx truck drove up with a check for $20,000 from our fund, and it didn't have to get foreclosed. So that's the kind of speed, and that's the kind of things that we can do when we have a policy, and all of our volunteers and Karen and the rest of our executive crowd are all authorized to do everything within the policy. And the policy is pretty broad, pretty loose. We run kind of a loose attitude, or a loose organization with a tight attitude is the way I describe it. And then we have an executive committee, and if something comes up that's outside the policy, then they call the executive committee. And of course, the executive committee is me. It's an executive committee of one, and I have one question. Does the volunteer think we should do it? And Karen says yes, and I say do it. And as everybody knows, when I was in the Marines, because I never did much democracy. I just helped defend it. But at any rate, that's the way we operate, and that's the way we're going to continue. I want to say a word about it. We've also helped 400 Army families. We help Army warriors when they're in support of us and the like. We've sent grants to many, of course, to the Navy with our corpsmen and others, and we've had also grants with the Air Force and with the Coast Guard. So we cover the waterfront. We do the best we can. We have a number of alliances around the country, organizations like the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Scholarship Foundation, other people like that, and we work together. For example, we took the lead, the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Scholarship Foundation and the Semper Fi Fund took the lead a few years ago and really came up with a DVD and really publicized this problem with post-traumatic stress and all of that kind of thing. It was well received. There were about 200,000 or 300,000 copies of the DVD made in all the hospitals in the United States and Europe and elsewhere where our wounded passed through. And we helped fund the study, and we helped send Marines through that study. And I got a letter from, it's part of the special treatment. And it takes a long time to get this approved, as you know, through the process and the like. But I think it's beginning to work, and it's doing some good. And I know I had a letter from a father a while back, and it said simply, "Thank you for giving my son back." So again, that's what it's all about.